Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about a force of nature so powerful it can make one of the planet's biggest fisheries just disappear. It's a phenomenon that can send shockwaves through an entire country's economy. So what is this invisible force that wreaks so much havoc? Well, let's dive in and find out. So let's start with a bit of a mystery, right? I want you to picture this, a fishery, absolutely massive, that helps feed millions of people around the world. Now, imagine a shift in the climate so powerful that, in just a few months, that fishery is almost completely gone. What could possibly do that? Is it a hurricane? Some kind of disease? What is it?
Well, for something so destructive, the answer has a surprisingly gentle name. The culprit here is a phenomenon called El Niño.
Okay, so what exactly is El Niño? Well, at its heart, it all comes down to water temperature. It's this periodic event where a huge stretch of the equatorial Pacific Ocean gets unusually warm on the surface. And we're not talking about a little local heat wave here. This is a massive shift in the whole ocean atmosphere system, and it has consequences all over the globe.
And listen, this isn't some super rare once-in-a-century thing. El Niño is a regular visitor. It shows up every 2 to 7 years. It's that recurring yet kinda unpredictable cycle that makes it so difficult to deal with.
All right, so how in the world does a patch of warm water cause so much chaos? To really get it, we've got to look at how the Pacific Ocean normally behaves versus what happens when El Niño rolls in. You could call it a tale of two oceans.
This really lays it out perfectly. Under normal conditions, you've got these strong, reliable trade winds that blow across the Pacific. They push all the warm surface water over towards Asia. And what that does is it allows this cold, deep water that's packed with nutrients to rise up along the coast of South America. That process is called upwelling, and it's basically a giant, constant buffet for marine life. But during El Niño, whoa, everything changes. Those winds just give up. They get weak, or sometimes they even reverse. And that huge pile of warm water comes sloshing back to the east, putting a warm lid on the ocean and stopping that nutrient buffet from ever reaching the surface.
So we can break it down into 3 really simple steps. 1, the trade winds, the engine of the whole system. They just falter. 2, that huge pool of warm water, which is no longer getting pushed west, starts to shift back east, right toward the Americas. And 3, and this is the absolute killer move, the ocean's nutrient conveyor belt just shuts down. The upwelling stops. Period.
And this is where the biological disaster really kicks off. Because stopping that upwelling isn't just a change in ocean temperature. It sets off this devastating chain reaction that just rips through the entire marine food web, starting from the very bottom.
Yeah, the result is nothing short of catastrophic. I mean, when you turn off the food supply for an entire coastal ecosystem, you're pretty much pulling the rug out from under everything that lives there. It's a total collapse that starts with the tiniest organisms you can imagine.
And you can see that domino effect so clearly right here. No upwelling means no nutrients. No nutrients means no phytoplankton. These are the tiny little microscopic plants that are the absolute foundation of everything. Then, with less plankton, the little animals that eat them start to vanish. And that means the main food source for small fish like anchovies and sardines is just gone. When their food disappears, the fish either starve or they flee. So what's the final domino to fall? The entire fishery collapses.
And this isn't just some textbook theory. Let's look at a really dramatic, real-world example of this in action. Let's talk about what happens to Peru's anchovy fishery, which is normally one of the most productive on the entire planet.
I mean, the scale of what's at stake here is just immense. As one scientific source puts it, we're talking about severe declines in one of the world's largest fisheries. That's a huge deal.
So let's just walk through the disaster as it happens off the coast of Peru. First, this warm, nutrient-poor water from El Niño shows up. It replaces that cold, life-giving water that the anchovies need to survive. This leads directly to mass deaths. The fish literally starve. The few that do survive, they swim away, desperately trying to find cooler water with more food. And for the fishing communities, the people who depend on those fish, it's an economic catastrophe. Their nets come up empty, and their livelihoods just vanish.
So we've been focused on one specific fishery, but the impact of El Niño doesn't stop with anchovies in Peru. No way. This thing has consequences that reach far and wide. Let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture to see why this really matters to all of us. It really is a global event.
That same warm water that wipes out the anchovies puts incredible stress on coral reefs, which causes massive bleaching events. The seabirds and seals that depend on those fish for food begin to starve. It can mess up the breeding cycles for tons of other species. And the economic pain, that's felt by coastal communities all around the world, not just in Peru.
So, this brings us to the big question. What can we actually do about it? Look, we can't stop El Niño from happening, but we can get ready for it. By understanding the science, by using satellites and ocean buoys to track it, we can get much better at predicting when it's coming and how strong it's going to be. And that knowledge is absolutely critical for managing our oceans and protecting the people whose lives depend on them.
And that leaves us with one last, really important question to think about. You know, El Niño is a natural cycle, but it's happening in a world where our oceans are changing fast. As the planet gets warmer, you have to wonder how these powerful natural events are going to change too. So the question isn't just when the next El Niño will hit, but how powerful it might be, and whether we're truly ready for that next great disruption.